No idea what anyone else is going through. Words hold a lot more power than you think. You have a lot more capability to create change, not just for yourself, but for the people around you. Welcome to the Mindset Gym podcast, where we exercise your way of thinking to help unlock your hidden potential. I'm your host, Emily Irwin, a registered nurse and holistic nutritionist with a passion for all things health, fitness, and personal development. All right, let's get into it. Hi guys, welcome back to the Mindset Gym podcast. Welcome back to Car Talk. You know, I think I'm gonna like this segment of the show. It's actually kind of a fun way to do things because it's so easy. Kind of like I said last time, this is typically where I get a lot of my ideas, so it's really nice to just like throw on the camera, get right into it. So I had a thought come up as I was listening to a discussion between Terry Cole and Candy Valentino on a podcast that I had on while I was driving around today. And this was not really the main point of the episode, but what Candy was talking about in reference to her childhood had me thinking about some other things that I wanted to discuss with you guys. If you don't know who she is, Candy Valentino is a self-made entrepreneur, investor, author, speaker, and philanthropist. And she's someone who came from a very difficult past and had to put in a lot of work to create the life she has now and build herself up to where she is and the success that she has. And she was talking on the episode about her experience growing up, and she grew up, you know, she was the child of teenage parents, she was living in a trailer park, and so she wasn't in a situation where she came from a lot of money, she didn't come from people who had a lot of big opportunities, no one in her family had even graduated high school, let alone gone to college. And she describes her inspirations and the people who were in her surroundings that kind of had an impact on her development growing up and how she got into the path that she did and what kind of motivated her to take the steps that she did to get to where she is now. And she was discussing the fact that her father was a self-taught mechanic, and so she spent a lot of time as a child in the auto shop with her dad. And while her parents were not very wealthy people, there was a lot of people coming in to get their cars fixed who were, you know, doctors, lawyers, things like that, people who had quite a bit of money. And she talks about how she would frequently converse with these people and she would get to know them and they would interact with her when they came in to get their cars fixed. And having these interactions kind of shifted her perspective on what she could achieve, on what, you know, people were capable of achieving in their lifetime. And it kind of helped shift the narrative that she had around money, because she had come from a family where the narrative was that, you know, people with a lot of money have done bad things to get it, or that, you know, good people don't have a lot of money. And so there was just kind of this negative connotation over really successful people and people who had a lot of money. And she talks about how these interactions really helped shift her perspective about it, because she was meeting all these people who had a lot of money and they were really kind and they took the time to talk to her. And while this was not the main takeaway of the podcast, what it got me thinking about was, you never know how an interaction is going to impact the people involved. So, I mean, we have so many interactions with different people throughout the day. You're talking to so many people, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of interactions that you have with people where you don't think a whole lot of it, you know, you don't think a lot about it after the fact, and you certainly don't expect it to have any sort of long-lasting impact or implications for the people involved. But this is a really great example of how some of these seemingly unimpactful conversations actually do have a much bigger ripple effect downstream for the people involved. Because I'm sure if you went back years and years and were to ask these people who were coming in to just get their cars fixed, and, you know, we're just happening to strike up conversation with the child of the mechanic, I don't think they would have figured that it would have had such a profound impact on her mindset and what she was able to achieve in her life. And so this got me thinking about two things that I think hold a lot of value for us to be mindful of with any interaction that we have with people. The first one is the fact that you never know what kind of impact you may be leaving. You never know how your words may be changing a perspective or shifting something for the person that's conversing with you. And so it's a really great reminder to bring your best self to the conversations that you have and to try and lift other people up with your conversations. And, you know, just be mindful of the fact that you have no idea what anyone else is going through, and you have no idea how your words are going to impact them during the conversation and after. And so that just had me reflecting on how I approach conversations, and it's something that I think we can keep in mind as we're talking to other people, that your words hold a lot more power than you think. You have a lot more capability to create change, not just for yourself, but for the people around you. And I think we need to stop underestimating how much power our words can have. So that's just kind of that one kind of mindfulness piece that I think is a really interesting thing to keep in mind. And the second part to this is the impact that conversations with other people can have on you, because while the words you say can be really impactful for other people, the reverse can also be true. There is a lot of opportunity out there for other people to have an impact on your mindset and what you're able to do going forward. And so I think this is a really fun approach to kind of walk into any conversation that you have with a really open mind, and with the expectation, or with the mindset that this could be something really impactful, this could be something really important, this could be something that brings value to me going forward in my life, and just making sure that you're bringing that kind of open-minded listening ear into every conversation you have, because everybody in this world has so many different experiences. We come from such different backgrounds. We faced such different challenges. We all have such different perceptions and understandings of what the world is and how it operates, and, you know, the meaning behind things. And we all have different bits of information that we've collected. Like, there's so much value that other people can bring to the table in conversation if you're willing to receive it. And I think sometimes we shut ourselves out to this, and we maybe don't take the time to appreciate how much other people can bring to the table, because we can get so caught up in our own reality, right? We can get so wrapped up in our own world and our own problems and what's going on, and we're not always really listening when we get into conversations with people. We're kind of just wrapped up in whatever reel of thoughts is going on in our head, and we don't always take the time to truly take in and think about the things that are being said to us and consider the perspectives and the experiences of the people we're talking to. So I thought this was just like a really nice reminder that there is a lot of value to be had in the day-to-day conversations you have, even if it's just the, you know, short few minute conversation you have with the barista who makes your coffee, or that catch-up that you have with a coworker at work. It might be something that seems meaningless and minor, but there can actually be some value in there. There's value that they can bring, and there's value that you can bring. And walking into the conversation with that mindset of looking for those pieces of value and trying to bring little pieces of value to what you're doing can make your conversation so much deeper and so much more meaningful. And I've definitely had a lot of experiences like this myself. Like, just through my job, I interact with a ton of people every single day, a ton of people who come from very different walks of life, who've experienced very different challenges, who sometimes have very different views of the world than I do. And I've always tried to make it a consistent practice to walk into any interaction with an open mind and try to meet people where they're at and understand them for the experiences that they've had. And there's been so many situations where I have gone into conversations not expecting to learn something, not expecting to walk away with a shift in mindset or some information to mull over or something that kind of impacts my actions going forward. There's been so many conversations where I never expected that kind of ripple effect to take place in my own life, and it has. And I think it's just because I've been able to walk into it with that open-minded thought process of, this person has value, this person has experiences that I don't understand or have not had. There is information to learn here. There's a lot to be gained by just truly, opening my mind and opening my ears and listening to what this person has to say. And so that's kind of been a constant lesson for me. And so I think maybe that's why listening to this conversation between Terry and Candy brought this to my attention and had me reflecting on this, because it is something that's been so valuable in my own life, and something that I also try to keep in mind, you know, when I'm interacting with people all day for work, not just keeping an open mind for what I can learn from them, but trying to be mindful of the ways in which I'm interacting with them as well, because, you know, same thing, it's a two-way street. My words may hold more power than I realize. And so, yeah, I think that's just a really interesting reminder that I want you to take into your day today. Your words can hold a lot more power than you may realize. And other people's words can hold a lot more power for you than you may realize. And just, you know, so I want you to take that into practice this week. I want you to go into some conversations and try to keep that in mind. Try and keep in mind the value that your words can bring, and keep in mind the value that other people's words can bring. And you might find that the conversations you have are just way better for that. You're more open to, you know, sharing things of value that you may think may impact them. You're going to be more receptive to hearing the things that they're bringing to the table, and it just creates a much nicer back and forth. Bit of a short and sweet one today. I didn't have a ton of time to hop on here and record episodes, but I did have a little bit of a gap, and so this was nice to, you know, hop on here and just have a conversation with you guys. You know, like I said, we're just two friends going for a drive. So that's your homework for this week. Try and have some new conversations, and try and look for value in them, and try and see what you can bring to the table for other people, because it's probably a lot more than you think. All right, thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next week. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. If you liked the episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review, or share the show with a friend. Your support helps this show reach even more incredible people just like you. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time at the Mindset Gym.